Right.
So good afternoon, Jackie Coultas. It's really lovely to see you this afternoon, and one or two technical hitches between our computers this morning, but absolutely great to be able to video with you, and we'll post that on our Facebook Aspire4Business Online later on this afternoon. So over to you then, Jackie, and tell us all about you, what you do, and then we'll post that up for you later on. So it's lovely to see you today.
Hi, hello, thank you, and welcome to invite me onto this podcast video. My business is horse transporting, and I was very cautious about it. I was pushed into it by friends. I've been with horses for 50 years, and everybody knew who I am on the circuit, and everybody kept asking me, could I borrow a horse box? And I couldn't understand why. It turns out their horse boxes would be in the mechanics, and they needed their horse boxes to get to A to B, and I had one spare. And so instead of hiring it out, I do the transporting for them. I did all the paperwork, got the insurances, and I was still not confident in doing it, but I've kept going, and I'm into the third or fourth year. I'm also in the process of acquiring another lorry, which is far more expensive. Now, when I started this business, I wasn't sure it would take off. And everybody has a goal. Everybody has a vision board to achieve their goals. Now, mine, interestingly, wasn't actually a vision board, but I'm going to read you this. And it's from Proverbs 18, chapter 16, from the King James Bible. Now, this was my vision board. A man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men. It will make a way for you in life. It is in exercising this gift that you will find real fulfillment, purpose, and contentment in your work. I think that kept me going. I kept looking at it when things were down because I didn't trust myself. I didn't know what I was doing, but I kept looking at it and thinking, would I ever get the clients? And I'm passionate about what I do. I love what I do, and it's the only thing I've ever wanted to do. Even though I've had a very expensive private education, I've still gone back into the horses. It's what I love doing. Now, where it says the part, it brings him before great men, it really has brought me before great men, because my transport has good perks to it. I get to go transport racehorses on occasion, and because of it, I get work through it. I've managed to meet our top jockeys, our trainers, our Olympic riders in eventing, show jumping, dressage, and because I get to know them, they get to know me, they know my business, and I just keep going forward. Now, in the early days, I was dead cheap and cheerful. That was just to get myself to find out what my platform was, what my foundation was, and I was getting the work. But gradually, over time, I realised I couldn't keep going with those prices. I had to up them, even though I didn't want to do it, because I was aware that people only got X amount of money that they can afford to spend. But I knew if I didn't up my prices, I would not be in business 18 months down the line. So what I did was, to up my prices, I had to make my lorry more public viable. In other words, I had to do things so that I could transport public horses rather than my private horses. And I did alterations on the lorry to accommodate that. And because of that, it cost money. So I had to put my prices up a little bit. I was still reluctant, but I did it and I kept going. And then now I am busy, and I have been confident enough to put my prices up even a little bit more higher, thinking, oh, people aren't going to want to know me, I'm too expensive. But actually, that's not been the case. I've got a good name now. I transport all over England, Scotland and Wales. I've got a license to transport in Europe and in Ireland. Unfortunately, my lorry isn't fit to do the job, but I am. But hey, I'm fine with my business in England, Scotland and Wales at the moment. I am looking at a lorry that's a bit more bespoke, because I'm realising now that as I've got my name out, I create a good service. I'm not just a transporter from A to B. I help people get, if they want to go to a show, they've got a groom, I chuck myself in, I get involved, and I tell them bits and bats and how to achieve what they want to do and whatnot. I keep everybody in the loop, what's going on the day, from the moment they're picked up to they're dropped off. I always say to people, don't text me, ring me, and you can keep in touch with your horse. I have a tracker on the lorry so that they can track their animals in safety. And then it gives them an idea of when the time of arrival, and if I've gone wrong somewhere, because sometimes I get delivered to a field in the middle of nowhere. It could be any county, and so they can track me in to where I have to go in what right field, because they're not always there all the time. Now, what I've learned since starting up the transport business, I've realised now that I'm getting more high-end horses. I'm aware of the dangers far more than ever before, because I used to drive like any other car driver, but when you've got a lorry and a horse, your mind totally shifts. You've got to think 3 steps ahead of everybody else. You've got to keep yourself safe, the horse safe, and the lorry safe, and be aware of what's going on the road to make your move before you take out. And you get a lot of abuse because the lorry and the horse dictates how you drive on the road. It doesn't matter what the car drivers think. So what I've learned is also that you take the rough with the smooth. The smooth's fantastic. You get it's such a pleasure. But my rough parts is I've been broken down on the motorway in the middle, 7:30 at night in the middle of winter, thankfully with no horses on, and you've got to find the right people to get you back on the road. So far, I've never had a breakdown with a horse on board, and that is a whole new different level of awareness again, because you've got to inform the police, you've got to inform the breakdown recovery people, and you've got to close the road and get another horse transporter to take the horses off and put them on theirs and send them back on the journey. Those things I've had to learn, and now I've got a good team in place where I know what to do. I'm connected to the PRB, which is an equine rescue business, like it's a bit like AA service, RAC, and it's their job that they connect people to breakdown recoveries, and you go out there and rescue the horses while they sort out the horse boxes. I also work as an independent on roadside rescue. I've also realised that horses aren't what the sellers or the owners seem to tell me, because they do have problems and they can be dangerous. So to stop them hurting themselves in the lorry, I have to take control of their actions. And I'm thinking of buying a new piece of kit at the moment. It's a safety harness, and they are clicked onto the lorry to stop them from going over the top or stop them kicking the lorry or anything like that. Because when they kick off, there is a lot of weight there and you cannot control the lorry. Now, when I have a problem, I can ring up the police, I ring up the vets, and I ring up the paramedics, and I've got all those things in place in case of emergencies. Thankfully, there's very, very few emergencies, but it can happen. The other job is if I've got horses that are elderly, I can actually override a vet's permission to travel, because if I don't think that animal is safe to travel because of its weakness, it will fall down, I don't want that animal hurting itself on my lorry, so I can refuse transport on a vet say so. So I've got a little bit of power, but I don't assert it too often. I have to work with the vets when animals are poorly. Sometimes if I could have a blue light on the lorry, I would have one. I think the police are quite lenient, really, especially when they know you're a transporter in the vicinity of a vet. They pretty much weigh up that you're going to a vet's and it's a hurry up job. Otherwise, the animal could die in transit or whatever. The other thing is, I never expected to do this. You're on call 24/7. If you've got a vet call, it may be 12:30 at night. Could you go and take this horse to the vet? So my social life is good, but I am very much aware that I'm on call, so I don't drink. I'm not a drinker. I've disciplined myself to do that. And everybody thinks I'm boring, but hey ho, I'm not boring. So again, because it's my passion, and I didn't expect to be doing this and still working at it, that proverb that I've just quoted you, it kept me going, because I didn't think I'd get the clients. Because there's plenty transporters around near me, because I live in racing country. But people say you're good at what you do. You don't realise how good you are at doing it. So I have to convince myself that I'm good. Everybody else can see it in me, but I can't see it in myself. So I tend to do what's right, knowing I have to make a living, and just be more compassionate, more sympathetic, and understanding from an owner's point of view when I'm doing my transporting. Because I treat those animals like I would treat my own. Now that doesn't mean a lot, really, because everybody's got different standards, but as long as they're happy and they're safe, that makes me happy, and I can do the job with great success and contentment, as it says in the thing. Now, so I've been going for about 3 years now, and as I say, I'm expanding a bit more. I'm going to get another lorry now, because the lorry I've got is not doing the miles I wanted to do, because I can do 2,000 in a week. So I'm having to look at new type of lorry and up my game a bit, because I'm getting more expensive horses on now, and I have to up my game. Not necessarily, it isn't really much about upping my image. It's more about upping the safety benefit factors for the horses, to make them comfortable while traveling. And that might include air conditioning in the horse section, a lighter box. When I say light, the walls, because when you close all the doors, it can be quite dark in those boxes. So I am trying now to get a more productive lorry, so that it can travel the horses in style, less stress, and more bespoke, so that they're fresh when they come off the lorry at the other end. When this virus came on, and everybody was saying, oh, the police are going to stop everybody on the roads and they're going to turn your back, I thought that was weird. And I thought, I'm not having that. I'm not going to take that directive at all. So I rang the DEFRA. They're in charge of the agriculture and fishing, farming and whatnot. And I asked them how I stood as a horse transporter. Now, at the time, because everything was on lockdown, it meant all horses, all racing, 3-day events, all the sports were all closed down. So as time marched on, people couldn't afford to keep their animals in training. So I knew they needed transport to take them home. So that was my job. While I was going in March, in the beginning of April, I was just purely taking horses out of yards and taking them back home to the owners. The other thing was, we were at the back end of the foaling season, and mares needed to go to the vets they needed to go to stud to have their foals, and it was my job to transport them here, there and everywhere, just exactly the same. And since then, I've actually kept going. I've been ticking over, and while I've been at home board, I've been tweaking presentation really, and keep going, talking to people. You know, I do a good lot of networking. I do a lot of judging and stewarding at horse shows. I've had a lot of events cancelled myself, judging events cancelled. So I've been keeping people in the loop about what's going on. The trouble was, when I got my directives from DEFRA saying how safe it was, that I could do it as a one-to-one person, I couldn't convince people that it was safe to take the horses out the yard. It was difficult. So I would ring them up and say, I can still do this, I'm still working. This is what it's going to do. I'm going to drive up into your yard. You're going to point me to the horse that needs to go on the lorry, and I will open up all the lorry. You can put your horse on board. I close up the lorry and off I go. There's no need for any contact. The only stipulation I did ask was provided that the horse was easy to load, because a lot of them can be difficult to load, and it can take 3-4 hours to load a horse or a pony, and it can take up to 3 people to help load it as well. So I've learned a lot through the virus, the lockdown, knowing that what you hear on the news is not actual fact in real life, because what people were hearing on the news, I was out there doing it, and I thought, well, I'm not seeing what the news are telling you. So I was quite happy to keep going, and everybody kept saying, Jackie, are you all right to do that? I said, yes, I'm safe. I feel safe. So I just did it just like that. So we kept on going, and I've kept on going ever since. So I'm quite happy to do that. And since then, it's just been manic. Everybody's wanting to buy new horses and ponies, and I have been so busy. Everybody obviously got to know my name. You're always going to get undercut. I always get undercut by people who can do it cheaper. But I think, yeah, well, if you want to do it cheaper, you go to somebody cheaper. That's up to you. That's your opinion. That's your option. But for me, I charge what I charge because I value the people, I value their animals, and I value myself. And I appreciate that they can come to me because they want to come to me with the knowledge I've got, rather than go to somebody else because it was just cheap, because it was there for cheap. They weren't bothered how well looked after they get. I travel all over in the wind, in the winter and the summer, and I have to sleep in the lorry, and it can be pretty miserable, I can tell you. I slept in the lorry in -8 degrees last winter up in Inverness, and I thought, it's time I got a bit of living in my lorry now, a bit of luxury. So hopefully that is what I'm doing. It does get, as I say, it does get hairy sometimes. I've had horses, put me in bad situations, and the public in bad situations on the road. But you deal with it. You keep calm. You don't panic. You try and help the animal. You ring up the nearest vet. Thank God for smartphones sometimes. You keep everybody in the loop, what's going on. Because sometimes I just deal with a problem and don't let the owner know until after the problem's happened, because I don't want them stressing out, knowing that they can't be there to help and wondering what's going on. So it is an interesting job. You do lots of miles. I can go away for days. I never get a shower for days. It's all right. It is what it is, and you just get on with it. The thing I have noticed is that I think like a lorry driver now. and I appreciate other lorry drivers on the road, and they're like a family. They do look after you. As daft as it sounds, they do look after each other on the roads. They'll always say, "Are you all right?" Because I've had a few incidences on the M1, and they will look out for you. Yeah, and I'm appreciative of that, because I'm not technically minded. I only know so much on how to look after my lorry, oil and tyres and one thing and another. But if you have a breakdown with a puncture and a burst tyre, there's nothing you can do. You've just got to get yourself to safety. And I've had a few men say they couldn't do my job. I would like to do your job. How can you stay so calm? You just do. You have to. Because if you're panicking and you're just having a meltdown, you're no good to that horse, you're no good to the owners. And the horses are so sensitive, they pick up on fear very, very quickly. So it's your job to keep calm and help them keep calm and remain calm, because the longer they're calm, the less damage to themselves it can do. So that really is all it is. It's just different. It's a different job to being in the town. I don't work in a shop, I don't work in a factory, in an office, but my lorry is my home, it's my office, and it's my place of work. So as soon as I jump in that lorry, it's out there, I start working. The other thing is when you come back from a journey, you're up, because of viruses and everything. Even a horse box has to be disinfected because of the animal viruses that are going around. So my horse box gets thoroughly disinfected on the inside and washed on the outside to make it look more presentable. It can be a bind, and it can be expensive. It's very expensive for the type of disinfectant to use, so that animals don't get ill through licking parts of the lorry. So that all has to be done. So it's never stops. It never stops. You provide them with hay, you provide them with water, you stop when you think that they're distressed to calm them down. I am licensed to travel abroad in Europe, but my lorry is only licensed to travel in around England, Scotland and Wales. And because of it, you are limited how many hours you can travel an animal and how many hours I can travel. I'm classed what they call a DEFRA 1, which means that I can travel an animal up to 8 hours. It's not always possible in the summer because of the amount of traffic on the road. It can stretch to 10 hours, but you make sure that they're kept safe. You make sure they've got plenty of water. You give them a rest and you carry on. But if they're quiet and they're happy, you just keep going. There's no need to disturb them. You just keep going and just get them off. And your job is to get them on and off as quick as possible, no matter where they are in the country, because they do get distressed, they do get fed up of being cooped up in a box for 8 hours, just like a child would be in a car. So you have to think of all those implications, really. But it is what it is, and I really enjoy it. There's a lot of people out there doing it. Some need a bit more learning, I would say, because many times I get jobs that have gone pear-shaped for other lorry drivers, and you have to go out and pick up the pieces and carry on doing it. But that's fine. That's really good. It doesn't matter. We're all in it together. We all look after each other. And if I can't do a job, I pass it on to another lorry driver. Say, I've got this job, I'm double booked, can you do it for me? So we all look after each other. You know the ones that you can trust. You know the ones that can do a good job because it reflects on you, really. So those are my recommendations. So my top tips really is know your product, know how volatile it can be. In my case, horses can kick off, and I sometimes think, is this worse than a tanker load of petroleum, petrol? Because I think it's just as dangerous. So know your product. In my case, I have to stay alert all the time, and I have to be fit and active all the time. I don't go to the gym. I don't need to go. I walk miles as a judge and steward. And when you're holding horses that nearly weigh half a ton and are far more powerful than you, you keep strong holding on to those horses. So you've got to stay fit and active and alert. You've got to stay calm. You haven't got to stay panic. You've got to know how to work with the vets, the police, and the paramedics, because they'll be asking you questions. You've got to know how to work with them. Keep all your phone numbers handy for breakdowns, horse rescue, accidents, all those things. Keep updating, get updates on reviews in insurances, because at one point I was on an insurance and it was due for renewal, and I said, I've been doing this many miles, I'm not busy. And they said, oh, you shouldn't be on this insurance, you should be on another insurance because your miles are so high. And I wasn't keen, but I did discover that it was cheaper insurance because of that reason. So always get reviews on where you're at. Review all your insurances and your associations and your authorities. Keep yourself maintained, very well maintained. Look after yourself. Keep your equipment very well maintained. It costs a fortune, but keep that well maintained. And be sympathetic and compassionate to the owners and to the horses. Particularly, it's very difficult when you know a horse is going one way and it's not going to come back alive, and that is difficult, but you have to be the utmost professional and be very discreet on that. That does take a lot of emotional pressure on you. It really does stress you, that does. The other thing is always be on time. Keep the owners in the loop of where you are, what time you're delivering, if you're stuck in traffic, how long you're going to be. And just talk to everybody. Don't think you can't talk to nobody, because you can. I also do a lot of volunteering work in the horse world, and I talk to people. In fact, one of the oddest contracts I ever got through talking to people was an insurance company. They sponsor the Derby race. I forgot what it's called now. Anyway, they've got a zebra, and it's their icon. And they asked me, Jackie, would you take the zebra to all the different events they go to? And I thought, why would you have a zebra? And I realised the zebra was a plastic resin thing, and they wanted that to take to their stands at all the different shows that they go to. So that was one of the funniest contracts I got. And I was meant to be doing that this year, but because of all this COVID business and this virus business, that's never got seen through yet. But I've kept in touch with the people, and fingers crossed, you never know, I might get a VIP status at the Derby next year for taking a zebra down to the race. That was really funny. The other thing is your planning has to be essential. You have to know how long a job takes, where you expect to be at the right time. Like for me, for instance, I don't want to be traveling horses through the middle of the night, keeping everybody awake, waiting for them to be transported. People have done it and it has happened, and I'm not happy about that. It doesn't do nothing for me. I get worn out. So I like to plan the day that suits the horses' feeding regime at the yards, because they get fed about 7:30, between 7:30 and 8:30 is the norm for most regimes. So I like to work around or with the yard owners, so that they know I'm coming. They know that the horse had plenty of time to digest its food, so that it doesn't get colic and things like that. And then off we go and take it down. And then also, particularly in the winter when it's short hours, daylight hours, I don't like trying to find a farm on the middle of the Exmoor, Dartmoor, in the middle of nowhere. It is so difficult. So I try my very best to get there during daylight hours. I don't mind picking them up in the dark at, say, at 4 o'clock in the morning and taking them down, as long as it's daylight hours. I like to work with the daylight when it comes to winter times. But dropping off in the dark I'm not very keen on, because it's difficult to find where you're going. The other thing is, people keep my background, everybody kept particularly my mum and dad, they used to think my hobby was an expensive hobby, but actually I've actually managed to turn it into a business, because in my mind it was a business. It was never a hobby, but the outside people just think it was a hobby. It never has been, and I've made some money out of doing something I love. I never thought I would, but I'm keep going, I'm keep learning, but most of all, enjoy yourself. You've got to enjoy it. There's no point going out the door with a heavy heart and thinking, I really don't want to do this, because you're not serving yourself then. You're not serving other people. But it's competitive. I'm not saying it isn't. It is competitive, particularly around me where I live, with it being all racehorse trainers and whatnot. So they've got all their boxes. But it's good if people get to know you. I get to know the clients, and I know what their standards are, and I can work with that, and I'm really happy with that bit. That is the best way. So if anybody would like to answer any questions, feel free. You can chat to me on Facebook or email me, jackiebrucecoultas@yahoo.co.uk. And I hope that helps. I hope it's interesting. It's different, I know. But anyway, thank you very much. Thank you.
Jackie, you're an absolute angel and you're an absolute star as well. And I'll put your contact details under the Facebook posts that we'll make with your contact details. It's been an absolute pleasure to know you. And I'm going to tell everybody, we actually met last year, didn't we, down at the San Polo in Poole, and so we were at an event there. But we sort of were familiar with each other before that. And one thing that you didn't actually say to people is something that you and I both share, is we're quite little in stature, aren't we? And when I think of you like lugging a lorry around and horses, you are just an amazing person. And I'm so delighted that you could come on to Live in Online just to tell people about what you do, because you're an absolute inspiration, Jackie, and you work so hard. I know that. And make sure that people are kept in the loop, and all the notifications that you put out for people as well. You are an inspiration, my dear, and looking forward to getting together with you at some stage in the future, as we've planned.
Yes, we can meet up and have some fun, socialise, and get on, do some racing or polo.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be fantastic. But I'm just going to say thank you very much for now, and we will put your video and your information onto the Facebook Live in Online. And just to say, Jackie Coultas, thank you very much for today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.